friends, it's Lisa and welcome to a new video. So today's video is going to be me checking in with past me and seeing if I know my reading tastes. So at the beginning of the year, I made a 5-star prediction video. I had, I think, 8 books on the list of books that I predicted were going to be 5 stars that I planned to read in 2020. Now at the end of 2020, I have read all of these books and I am here to report if they were indeed 5 stars or not. And spoiler, they were not all 5 stars. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I actually have my original video up on my laptop here, and I'm going to play and listen to what I had to say about each of these books and then talk about whether my reasonings were valid, if I gave a good reason for thinking it was going to be 5 stars, or if I just put it on the list because it's what everyone else was rating these books. But we'll see what my reasoning was for all of these books being on this list, and then I'll kind of talk about if they were 5 stars or not. I had a mixture of releases that came out in 2020 as well as some backlisted titles, so let's just get into it. Let's see past Tiny Lisa and what she has to say. So the first book that I think is going to be 5 stars is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in a new trilogy that is sort of a sequel trilogy to The Infernal Devices that Cassandra Clare wrote previously. The Infernal Devices are my favorite Cassandra Clare books. I literally talk about them in every single video I film, and I'm pretty confident that this is going to be 5 stars because the few people that I've seen get arcs of this book have rated it 5 stars, particularly Chloe from Books with Chloe. Me and her tend to have pretty similar feelings towards books, so she gave it 5 stars because she got an arc, and I feel like I will do the same. For the most part, too, I feel like most of Cassandra Clare's newest releases have been 4 or 5 stars for me, so I'm pretty confident that I'm going to give this 5 stars. Okay, so the first book that I mentioned is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, and my reasonings were I love The Infernal Devices and that they're my favorite trilogy by her, which I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I do love them. And people who I trust, their reviews, gave it 5 stars, and I assumed I would be doing the same. Plus, it's Cassandra Clare, and I just feel like anything that she writes, I typically assume is going to be close to a 5 star, if not a 5 star. And past Lisa, you would be correct. I did give this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was super fun. I had such a fun experience reading this book. I think a part of the reason why I loved this book and this reading experience so much is because I buddy read it with Andrea and Therese. I feel like I talk about Andrea and Therese all the time. They're just my ladies. I don't know what to tell you. But we buddy read this book, and that was like a big moment in our friendship. I feel like that made us become a lot closer. So like the whole experience of buddy reading Chain of Gold with them was just so much fun, and I definitely think it had an influence on my enjoyment of the book. But the actual book itself I did really enjoy. I think a lot of these characters I really love, and I'm so interested to be following them for another 2 books. I think sometimes with Cassandra Clare, I don't always love every character that's a main character that she's writing about, but I love every character, I think, in this series that at least you're supposed to like. Grace, not so much. I don't trust her. I don't really like her. But all of the kids, I just love them. I love Cordelia. I love Lucy so much. I also love the Merry Thieves. I just love them all so much, and I think they're going to be super fun characters to follow. I also feel like this book was setting up for a very exciting rest of the trilogy. I did really enjoy it. I thought it was so much fun. The cover is stunning. The inside is stunning. The chapter with Cordelia and James in the Devil's Tavern, is that what that's called? I could be making that up. That could be a mistaken memory or name. I'm surprised that even like came to mind because Shadowhunter stuff I get confused very easily. But you know, the chapter with James and Cordelia. Y'all know the one I'm talking about. That made it 5 stars. But yeah, this was 5 stars. I loved it. I really wasn't taking a gamble putting this on the list. The next book that I think will be 5 stars is another new release, and that is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. So Carrie Maniscalco wrote the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, which is one of my favorite series ever. Honestly, I don't know too much about this book. All I know is that I think there's like a demon prince involved and there's magic, I think. I don't know. I don't really know that much about it, but I do know that I really like Carrie Maniscalco's writing and her previous books, so I'm very excited about this one. Even though I don't remember the concept off the top of my head, I feel like it's going to be a book that I really, really like, so I'm pretty confident that it'll be a 5 star. So Kingdom of the Wicked I put on this list, and I think this was a fair assumption to put this on the list because I loved her other series, Stalking Jack the Ripper, like I said, especially knowing Capturing the Devil, the final book in that series, was such a strong finale and was so good, and I loved it so much. I think I was just automatically going to assume that this was going to be a 5 star, and I did enjoy this. However, it wasn't a 5 star. I think I gave this a 4 star rating. I did think it was fun. The romance and the banter and the angst and the enemies to lovers, very similar to, it wasn't similar to Stalking Jack the Ripper, but similar to that series where she writes it really well. I think that's where Carrie Maniscalco's writing really excels. She excels in the enemies to lovers, angsty, banter, romance. I love it so much. So that was definitely great in this book as well. And it was a super fun book. And kind of once I got like into it, I got pretty invested and was definitely like interested to keep going. However, the first like 100 or so pages, I was kind of struggling with it a little bit. Not because it was hard to follow or things weren't happening, because things in the plot were happening and I was understanding sort of what was going on. I just feel like the whole magic system was not really explained very much. I feel like it was a very simple magic system, so as I kind of came to accept that it wasn't going to be explained very well, it was pretty easy to understand and to follow. However, it wasn't explained very much. I feel like it was just like, and this is the way we do things because that's the way we do things. And that was as much of an explanation as we got. But I still think it was a fun book. I definitely am excited to pick up the sequel. I'm super excited to see where it goes. However, it wasn't 5-star material, but it was still good, still fun. Would definitely recommend if you're just looking for a very quick and fun and easy to read romance book with a little bit of magic and Princes of Hell. It was quite fun, I will say, so I did enjoy it a lot. It just wasn't quite a 5-star. So the next book I have to talk about is the last new release of this year that I think will be 5 stars for me, and that is Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer. I really like Marissa Meyer's books, and I just don't see how this could be not a 5-star. I mean, obviously there is a chance it could be a 4-star, but I really don't think it's going to be any less than that. At least I hope not. But I'm really excited. I know that this is kind of a contemporary book with a little bit of magic as well. I feel like it's such an interesting concept, and I love Marissa Meyer, so there's a good chance it'll be 5 stars. Oh boy, okay, here we go. Okay, so Instant Karma. Let's discuss. So I actually did a whole reading vlog reading this book. However, I feel like a lot of my thoughts on the book have kind of changed since that reading vlog. When wrapping up my thoughts on the book in that vlog, I didn't give myself much time to really have time to think about it and to let it sink in. So I kind of was just like, yeah, it was great. I'm going to give it a 4.5 star. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's a very generous rating. Here's the thing. I still stand by what I said in the vlog. I did like it. It was still cute. I think that the Prudence character, the main character, she was very relatable to teen me. I think the romance was pretty cute. I liked certain plot points. I liked that certain things that happened at the beginning kind of kept doing this snowball effect throughout the whole book. There were things that I liked about it. I still stand by a lot of what I said in that vlog. However, I think I was a bit generous with my rating. Also, I liked Marissa Meyer's writing as well. I wanted to say that. I do like her writing, and so that continued on in this book. So I still stand by everything that I said in that vlog. I don't think it's as high of a rating as I was giving it originally. And I think that's just because I am not a big contemporary fan. I really like fantasy. That's kind of my thing. I don't really read a lot of YA contemporaries that are more lighthearted. I like YA contemporaries that are a bit more hard-hitting, deal with more serious topics, and kind of just have a more serious tone to them. They can have the fluff, they can have the romance, and sometimes I do like the more fluffy YA contemporaries. It just takes a lot for me to really love them. So putting this as a 5-star prediction was a bit bold because I'm not the biggest YA contemporary fan to begin with. I think the only reason I put this on my 5-star predictions was because of the name of the author. And that's fair. I've given everything Marissa Meyer has written, everything else, 4 or 5 stars, so that was fair to assume. However, okay, so I originally gave it a 4.5. Then when I went to go rate it onto Goodreads, I gave it a 4. And now I'm kind of questioning if it's more of like a 3.5. It's not bad. It's still cute. Like I said, still stand by everything I said in my vlog. However, I just don't think I loved it as much as I initially thought. And I definitely think that if I'm going to reread a YA contemporary, it might not be this one. I don't know. Like, I think if you like the more lighthearted, fluffy YA contemporaries, you're gonna love this because it's a very good one. However, that's just not really my cup of tea. I think Marissa Meyer, in my opinion, really excels in the more sci-fi and fantasy element. I think she can write really cute contemporary. I think this was really cute. I think if I had read this when I was younger, I probably would have liked it a lot more. Like if I was in like high school or even a bit younger, I think I would have liked this a lot. I just don't think it's really targeted towards me. Not to say that you can't enjoy YA contemporaries at any age because I still read them. I just think that this one is more so what I would have been reading like a few years ago, and it wasn't necessarily a favorite now. I do think that she is good at writing YA contemporaries, and I think if she were to write a contemporary, I think it makes sense that it's more of a lighthearted, fluffy one, but I would love to see her write a more hard-hitting contemporary because I feel like that would be good, and that could be a 5-star potentially. So yeah, unfortunately this was not a 5-star, and it's surprising because it's one of my favorite authors, but it's still cute and I still liked it. Like I still enjoyed it. I just don't think it's necessarily a 5-star. I'm still debating on whether to lower my rating to like a 3.5. It's a 4-star right now, but Compared to her other books, and I've given some of her other books 4 stars, this is not on the same level. I think this is probably my least favorite Marissa Meyer book, so I feel like my rating should probably reflect that. So yeah, unfortunately this was not a 5-star rating, not a 4-star rating either, potentially. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer, but I did like it. I did think it was cute. So I would still recommend if you like YA fluffy contemporaries. I still liked it. It just wasn't my favorite of her books. Let's just say that. Okay, so now we're going to get into the more backlisted titles. Those were the only like new releases of 2020 that I had on my list. So now we're going to get into the more backlisted titles. And the first one that I wanted to talk about is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I have heard nothing but good things about this book. I feel like this is going to be a contemporary that I just really enjoy. I'm not the biggest contemporary reader, but just the idea of this one and the concept and just hearing how much people love it, I just feel like I'm going to love it as well. I also know that there are some themes about like trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, going to college, not going to college, and I don't know, I just feel like this is going to be a book that I can really relate to, but also it's just, I feel like one that's going to make me cry and make me emotional, so I don't know, I feel like this will be 5 stars. Plus, Kat from Paperback Dreams hypes this book up all the time. We all know that this is her favorite book ever, so if I don't give it 5 stars, I'm going to be so disappointed. Okay, so the next book, ironically, I just said that I'm not the biggest YA contemporary fan, and then I put another YA contemporary on my 5-star prediction list, but I even said in the video, I'm not a big YA contemporary person, but this one I thought I'd like. And she was right. I gave this 5 stars. So this is an example of a book that kind of has, it does have its cute moments and it does have its fluffier moments, but I think the more hard-hitting topics in this book and the things that it discussed just kind of hit closer to home and were things that I enjoyed more than a fluffy, really cute, lighthearted contemporary. And again, want to say there's nothing wrong with those types of contemporaries. There's some that I love. I just think that I prefer things that like this that are kind of more serious or have more serious discussions or hard-hitting topics. It's just something that I prefer. So yeah, I was kind of right when I said that I really thought I would be able to relate to this and that it was going to make me cry and that it was just going to hit me in the feels and going to be something that I could really relate to. I was definitely right in that aspect. I definitely could relate to a lot of what the characters were going through, a lot of the struggles and the pressure that they put on themselves to do certain things and to achieve certain things. I definitely could relate to a lot of that. I also just loved a lot of the themes and like discussions in this book, a lot of the things discussing friendship and relationships and sexuality and figuring out what you want to do with your future and a lot of the stuff regarding the internet and fandom culture. There was so much in this book that I really loved and really could relate to, so definitely would recommend reading this book if you have not already. I really enjoyed this one. It is a YA contemporary that I did love, and I'm just happy that I don't have to disappoint Kat from Paperback Dreams. Hearing her talk about this book for so long and then finally reading it and also loving it was just so satisfying. So yeah, 5 star, probably one of my favorite books that I've read this year. I really enjoyed this book. The next book is one that I'm very embarrassed that I haven't read yet, and that is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I feel like the reflection of this might be a bit annoying. I am embarrassed that I have not read this book yet. I feel like this is such an important book. It's really one that is so important to read in the time that we are living right now, and again, embarrassed that I haven't read it yet. I don't see how this could not be a 5 star. I feel like every person that's read this book has given it 5 stars. I feel like everyone loves this book, and I'm sure that's for good reason. So I'm very excited to read this, and I'm thinking it'll be a 5 star. So The Hate You Give, which is very shiny, and I hope I don't be annoying with the reflection in this video like I was in that one. So I didn't take much of a gamble putting this book on my 5-star list again. I did give this 5 stars. I think this book is super powerful and super important, but also just super good. How many times can I say super? So in this book, we're following a character named Star who witnesses her best friend getting shot by a police officer. Her best friend was unarmed. It was just, an example of police brutality, and it's such a hard book to read, but it is super important. Like, I know that a lot of people, they see the Black Lives Matter movement going on and they recommend this book and then they go, that's enough activism for the day, and I just touched my Christmas tree. So recommending this book is not enough, but I think it's an important book that everyone should read, and I think even not just young adults, anyone should be reading this book and learning from it and learning about the experiences that Black people face in America and around the world every day. But other than the very important subject matter of this book, I also just loved Angie Thomas's writing. I loved the characters. I loved the family dynamics. I just loved so much about this book. I think Angie Thomas is just going to become an author that I automatically read and buy anything that she writes. I still have not read On the Come Up yet, but I definitely want to. This book was just super good, super powerful and impactful, and I definitely would recommend if you haven't read it yet. So technically, I guess I have 8 books, but I'm counting these 2 as just one, and that is the Six of Crows duology. So we have Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I just feel like I'm really going to enjoy these. I didn't love the original Grisha trilogy, but I did think it was an interesting world. I know a lot of people like the characters and the story of these books a lot more than the original Grisha trilogy, so I'm thinking that I will too. Again, I will be very disappointed if I don't give these 5 stars, only because everybody talks about these books, everybody loves them, everybody hypes it up, and I'm just going to be so sad if I don't, but I think I'm going to. I think I'm going to like them. Okay, so the next books I mentioned were Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and my reasoning for putting these on the list is that everyone else gave them 5 stars, so why won't I? What good reasoning. Okay. Let's talk about Six of Crows first. So Six of Crows is the first book in this duology that I think is becoming a trilogy, but it's a duology as of right now. I did give this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I found the plot of this book really interesting and really engaging. I was super interested in the whole heist idea and what was going to end up happening with that, kind of on the edge of my seat, wondering how it was going to go. I remember being very stressed reading this book. I also loved the characters. I really, really liked these characters so much more than any of the characters in the original trilogy. Other than Nikolai, love him. But I found a lot of these characters in Six of Crows a lot more interesting and engaging and a lot more interesting to follow than the original Grisha trilogy characters. Oh my god, it's snowing! Fun! Okay, anyway, sorry, got distracted by the snow. Back to Six of Crows. I also really enjoyed all of the relationships between the characters and the drama and the angst between all the characters and wondering kind of the history between them all. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was super fun and super entertaining, and I think it's Leigh Bardugo's best book, in my opinion. Now, Crooked Kingdom, on the other hand, I originally gave it 5 stars when I finished it, and then the more I thought about it, the more I realized it just didn't hit the same as Six of Crows, so I lowered it to a 4. I know that's not very dramatic. You were probably expecting me to be like, 1 star! It was terrible! It was 4 stars. It was so good. I still liked it. I just don't think it was as good as the first book. I think my biggest thing with this book is I didn't know the point. I didn't know the direction of what was going on. Like, I didn't know what these characters were aiming towards. Like, I sort of did. Like, I understood what they were kind of going through. It just, I didn't understand where the plot was going, and it wasn't like, I don't know where this is going in a good way because it's exciting. I didn't know where it was going, and I was just bored a little bit for a part of this. It did feel like it was dragging at parts, and I just didn't really know what the direction of the book was going to be. I do think that it was still good, and it was super entertaining, and certain scenes and certain relationships and certain characters and certain things that happened in this book were wild, and I had a great time reading it. However, I don't think it's as good as Six of Crows. I just didn't think that the plot was as interesting and as engaging and as entertaining as Six of Crows, but I still enjoyed it. I still gave it 4 stars, so I was half right. I gave this one 5 stars and this one 4 stars, which is still good. I'm still happy that I read them and enjoyed them, and now I finally understand the hype. I also have a bone to pick with book Twitter because I was spoiled for something that happened in Crooked Kingdom, and I will never forgive you. Anyways. So I have one more book to talk about, and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. This is another series that so many people on BookTube talk about and absolutely love. It's set in the 20s, there's magic, there's like spooky things, and I think it's like, I don't know if it's a found family trope, but I think that there's like a lot of different characters, which is something I really enjoy, so I just feel like it has a lot of elements that I'm going to like. I also think, I'm reading the back as I film this, but there's something about catching a serial killer, so is this like a murder mystery? It truly is everything that I could want in a book. I'm gonna love it. Okay, so the last book that I put on my 5-star prediction list was The Diviners by Libba Bray, and this was very close to being a 5-star. It was a 4.5 star, so like, close enough. So a lot of the aspects that I said I thought I would enjoy from this book, I did end up liking. I loved the big cast of characters. I loved the murder mystery element. I loved all the supernatural stuff. I loved the powers that some of these characters have. I don't think I knew that characters had powers, which like is like the whole point of the Diviners, but it's fine. I know now. So yeah, all of those things that coming together was definitely a recipe for me to give it 5 stars. The only reason I knocked like half a star off is because you're kind of waiting for this whole thing to happen the whole book, and you kind of get to that point And it's a bit anticlimactic in my opinion. Like, you kind of know this whole showdown is going to happen, and then you get to that point and it's building and building, the tension's building, and then the thing happens and you're just like, oh, that was it? So yeah, that was kind of the only thing that I really didn't like about it. I felt like it just kind of happened a bit too quickly and I didn't fully understand what was going on because it happened so fast. It was a bit anticlimactic, but other than that, I did really enjoy this book and I'm excited to continue on with the series. I definitely want to continue on and potentially finish the series in 2021. I have started so many series I need to finish a lot of them in the new year, I think. So I definitely want to continue on and finish them because I did really like this book. It's setting up to be a series that I think I will really love. So yeah, it was very close to being a 5-star, but it just had that one thing that kind of held back. So all right, those were the books that I put on my 5-star prediction list for 2020, and I'm pretty pleased. Surprisingly, the only book that was like somewhat disappointing was the Marissa Meyer book, and who would have thought that that would have been the case? Not me. But even then, like, I still have that book set as a 4-star on Goodreads. I might lower it to a 3.5, but even then, that's still not bad. A lot of these books were either 5 stars or close to being 5 stars, so I would say that I know myself pretty well. I also think that some of these books, if I had read them earlier on in the year, closer to when I made this list, I might have given them 5 stars because I definitely feel like my reading tastes have kind of evolved a little bit throughout the year. I feel like when I first started my channel, I was giving everything kind of 4 or 5 stars regardless of whether I liked it, and I still give 4 and 5 stars out pretty easily, but I feel like I have slowly become a bit more critical, and I think that's why some of these books weren't 5 stars for me, because I think if I had read them earlier, they might have been, but they just weren't because of my reading taste kind of changing throughout the year. But yeah, I still think that I did pretty well, that I know my reading taste relatively well, and a lot of these books are now new favorites of mine, so I think this video was a relative success. But let me know down below in the comments if you have read any of these books, what you rated them. Did you give them 5 stars? Did you not give them 5 stars? I would just love to know your thoughts on any of these books if you've read them. But other than that, that is going to complete this video, so don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you have not already. Also, don't forget to click the little bell notification to be notified anytime I upload. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!